You are lying in bed. The room is pitch black. The door is securely locked. The temperature is perfectly controlled, but your eyes are wide open. The clock on your nightstand reads 3 in the morning. You stare at the ceiling, feeling a rising sense of frustration because you cannot fall back asleep. You think something is fundamentally wrong with your brain. For 99% of human history, this wasn't a sleep disorder. This was a highly successful survival strategy. But there was no clock. There was no locked door. For roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors never experienced a solid, silent, 8-hour block of unconsciousness. Today, we treat sleep as a solitary, vulnerable act. We isolate ourselves. We demand total darkness. We buy soundproof curtains and white noise machines to block out the world. If we wake up in the middle of the night, we panic. But your body was not designed for a modern bedroom. Your brain evolved in the wild. Think about the sheer danger of going to sleep on the ancient African savanna. You are a slow, soft, clawless primate. You do not have night vision. When the sun goes down, the apex predators wake up. Leopards, hyenas, and saber-toothed cats are actively hunting in the tall grass. If your entire tribe went to sleep at the exact same time and stayed unconscious for 8 hours, you would have been eaten. Your genetic line would have ended. So how did ancient humans survive the night? They slept in shifts. And they did it completely by accident. Evolutionary anthropologist David Sampson wanted to understand how our ancestors survived this vulnerable state. He traveled to Tanzania to study the Hadza people. The Hadza are one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer tribes on the planet. They live almost exactly like ancient humans did. Sampson placed small actigraph monitors, which are like highly sensitive smartwatches, on 33 members of the tribe to track their sleep cycles over 3 weeks. The results completely shattered the modern myth of the 8-hour sleep. Over 220 hours of observation, there were only 18 minutes where all 33 people were asleep at the exact same time. Let that sink in. For almost the entire night, at least one person was awake. At any given moment, an average of 8 people were awake, stirring, or in very light sleep. Sampson called this the sentinel hypothesis. It turns out that variations in our internal clocks are not a flaw. They are a feature. You know how some people are extreme morning larks and others are extreme night owls? In the modern world, we punish night owls. We force them into 9-to-5 office jobs. But in the ancient world, the night owl was the guardian of the tribe. The elders and older adults naturally went to sleep early and woke up before dawn. The teenagers and young adults naturally stayed up late into the night. Because of these different chronotypes, the tribe had a built-in security system. There was always a sentinel awake to tend the fire and watch for glowing eyes in the brush. But where exactly did they sleep? You might picture a caveman just collapsing on the hard, cold dirt. That is incorrect. Your ancestors were engineers of comfort. They built complex beds long before the invention of agriculture. Archaeologist Lynn Wadley made a groundbreaking discovery at Border Cave in South Africa. Deep inside the cave, she found the fossilized remains of grass bedding dating back over 200,000 years. These weren't just random piles of leaves. These were meticulously constructed mattresses. Ancient humans harvested broad-leaved panicum grasses. They laid them thickly over a base layer of white wood ash. Why ash? Because ash blocks the breathing apparatus of biting insects. It is a natural insecticide. They also wove in leaves from the camphor bush, a plant that releases chemicals to repel mosquitoes and ticks. And when the bed got too dirty or infested, they didn't wash it. They burned it to the ground. Then they used the fresh ash from the old bed as the pest-repellent base for the new bed. It was a perfect, self-renewing cycle of hygiene. But the environment around that bed was radically different from yours. Anthropologist Carol Worthman has extensively studied the ecology of human sleep. She points out that for ancient humans, sleep was never a private event. It was intensely public. It was loud. It was bright. You slept shoulder to shoulder with your family. Skin-to-skin contact was essential. Without thick blankets, huddling was the primary way to survive the sharp drop in nighttime temperatures. The sensory environment was overwhelming by modern standards. There was the constant flicker of the orange campfire. There was the smell of wood smoke and roasting meat. There were dogs barking. There were babies crying and being nursed. There were adults talking, laughing, and mending tools in the firelight. If you were placed in an ancient human camp, you would probably beg for earplugs. But to your ancestors, that noise was a lullaby. In the ancestral environment, total silence did not mean peace. Total silence meant danger. It meant the sentinels had fallen asleep. It meant a predator was stalking just outside the firelight. When the camp went quiet, that is when your ancestors woke up in a panic. This brings us to the most counterintuitive truth about how humans are supposed to sleep. The continuous 8-hour slumber is an invention. For most of human history, sleep was broken into pieces. Historian A. Roger Eckerk spent decades digging through ancient diaries, court records, and literature from the pre-industrial world. He uncovered a forgotten pattern called biphasic sleep. Before the invention of artificial light, the night was long. In the winter, it could last for 14 hours. You couldn't possibly sleep that entire time. So humans naturally divided their rest. They would go to sleep a few hours after dusk. This was called the first sleep. It lasted for about 4 hours. Then, around midnight or 2 in the morning, they would naturally wake up. But they didn't panic. They didn't stare at the ceiling, stressing about work. This middle-of-the-night waking period was considered completely normal. It lasted for an hour or 2. People would stay in bed and chat. They would stoke the hearth fire. They would check on the animals. They would have sex. Many ancient medical texts actually recommended the time between the first and second sleep as the best time to conceive a child. After an hour or 2 of gentle activity in the dark, they would grow tired again. They would lie back down and fall into the second sleep, waking up naturally at dawn. So let's reconstruct a night in your deep ancestral past. It is midnight. You wake up on a thick woven mat of camphor leaves. The air is cool, but the body heat of your tribe keeps you warm. You sit up and look around. Across the camp, the fire has burned down to glowing orange embers. An elder is awake, quietly feeding dry branches into the flames. A teenager is sitting nearby, whittling a spear shaft with a flint blade. Someone on the other side of the hearth shifts in their sleep and mumbles. You hear the distant, echoing laugh of a hyena miles away. You are not scared. The fire is lit. The sentinels are awake. The tribe is safe. You stretch, whisper a few words to your partner, and drift easily back into your second sleep. This beautiful, dynamic, woven rhythm survived for hundreds of thousands of years. And then came the trap of the Industrial Revolution. In the 18th and 19th centuries, everything changed. We invented gas lamps and electric light bulbs. Suddenly, we could push the darkness back. We could keep factories running late into the night. The long, lazy nights of first and second sleep were no longer profitable. Capitalism demanded efficiency. So we compressed our sleep. We took those 2 natural phases and forced them together into one dense, uninterrupted, 8-hour block. We created rigid bedtimes. We created alarm clocks. We convinced ourselves that waking up in the middle of the night was a medical problem that needed to be fixed with pills. But your biology moves much slower than technology. You are still wearing the genetic hardware of a hunter-gatherer. When you feel that crushing wave of exhaustion at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that is not laziness. That is your ancient body expecting its midday savanna nap to escape the equatorial heat. And when you jolt awake in the dead of night, your mind racing, feeling completely alert, that is not always insomnia. That is the ancient sentinel inside you, waking up to check the fire. It is your body trying to enter the quiet, peaceful space between the first and second sleep. We took a deeply social, flexible, and natural process and turned it into a high-pressure performance metric. You are not broken. You are just living in the wrong environment. So tonight, when you are lying in bed, when the room is pitch black, when the clock on your nightstand reads 3 in the morning and your eyes are wide open, stop staring at the ceiling. Stop feeling frustrated. Remember the fire, the tribe, and the ancient savanna that designed your mind.